Next up on the Monster Pod, one of our most popular guests. Anytime he appears on these airwaves, you know him from the work he's done all over the sporting world, but most recently on NBC Sports covering horse racing. Randy Moss, welcome back to the show.
A legend in his own mind.
Very happy to have you here and very happy about the horse we've chosen to talk about because I think you, as a figure maker, and the lens through which you view the world will really help us get a handle on Luxor Cafe. I think he's got a chance to be a pretty hot item in this race, given the success Forever Young had last year. What do you think? We'll start with the key question. Is Luxor Cafe a contender?
I would say yes, he's a contender, kind of based on which journalism shows up, the same journalism as we saw in the San Felipe and the Santa Anita Derby. But, I mean, more so with Luxor Cafe than some of the recent Japanese horses. There's a little bit of guesswork here. I felt a lot more confident data wise with some of these other horses that we've seen recently. I mean, you can even go back, let's go back to Mendelssohn in 2018, not a Japanese horse, but he came out of the UAE Derby. And what? He won by a 16th of a mile or something like that. That
Oh, easy.
year, yeah, that year, and it's easy, much easier to compare these 3-year-olds and get an accurate number on them when they're running on the Dubai World Cup card or the Saudi card, where we have American horses running that we know we have a good line on, and we can accurately get what I think is a pretty representative number. In the case of going back to Mendelssohn, that year, Thunder Snow won the Dubai World Cup. He won it by 5 3/4 lengths over West Coast and Mubtahij, a couple of horses that have been running in the United States. And so it was pretty easy to give Thunder Snow and that effort like a 113, 114, 115. Mendelssohn ran 5 points slower. So that was, a really good speed figure, 108 or so, 107, 108, 109 for Mendelssohn. Now, he made an easy early lead, uncontested early lead that he wasn't going to get in the Kentucky Derby. How would that play out? Didn't play out well. All right. Then we move on to Derma Sotogake. He ran in both the Saudi Derby and the UAE Derby. In the UAE Derby, he wins by 5 lengths. Okay. And he actually runs a speed figure 5 points higher than the Dubai World Cup. Now, it wasn't one of the best runnings of the Dubai World Cup. I think Ushpa Tesoro won it. He's around a 100 to 102 type horse. But still, it's like a 105, 106 for Derma Sotogake, which is why I picked Derma Sotogake in that year's Kentucky Derby and liked him a lot. Now, as it turns out, he didn't have a very good trip and possibly, according to the trainer, running in both the Saudi Derby and the UAE Derby and then the Kentucky Derby might have been just a little too much for him. Now, last year, Forever Young. Forever Young runs in the Saudi Derby, and it was a very similar race to the race he ran against Romantic Warrior. It looked like Bookham Dano had the race put away, and Forever Young kept coming, kept coming, kept coming, and he gets there to win in a photo finish. Based on the other races on Dubai on Saudi Cup Day, the Americans involved, I made that race a 100 Buyer speed figure. And some people were telling me, how can you say at that point in his career, how can you say Bookham Dano was a 100 Buyer speed figure horse? And I say, it's not my job to give opinions. I can just give you the data. And I'm telling you, they both ran a 100 Buyer speed figure. Now, what we saw after that, Bookham Dano
Grade
comes
one
back
winner.
and runs a 100.
Yep.
I think in his very next start in the United States, and he's been close to that in almost every one of his races since then. Forever Young comes back in the UAE Derby and runs about 7 points slower than Ushpa Tesoro and Senor Buscador, which I think made him about a 95, 94, 95, tailed off just a little bit. But we saw what Forever Young did in the Kentucky Derby. Probably, arguably was the best horse, either he or Sierra Leone. Now, what about Luxor Cafe? Unfortunately, we don't have a similar line on Luxor Cafe because he just ran in Japan and didn't run against American horses where we could get a good line on him. Okay. Um, it's probably an advantage for Luxor Cafe not having come over to Dubai, to Saudi Arabia, and then Dubai, and then United States. He's just coming from Japan to the U.S. Okay. What we do have, though, is a line on a couple of the horses that he ran against. Admire Daytona and Don in the Mood did come back and run in the UAE Derby. Okay. Which might give us a little bit of a line on how good Luxor Cafe is. So, how did they run in the UAE Derby? This was not one of the stronger Dubai World Cups this year. You didn't have Fierceness. You didn't have Sierra Leone. You didn't have Locked. You didn't have White Barrio. You had Hit Show and Mixto. I don't want to disparage those horses. You and I would love to own either one of those horses, but they're not true grade one horses in the United States.
You're not seeing 113s.
If you give them a 101, 102, which is higher than they've been running, okay, the UAE Derby was run 20 full points slower. So let's say in 82 compared to 102 for the Dubai World Cup. Let's just throw that out there. All right. So Admire Daytona gets an 82 in the UAE Derby. He was beaten in his race before that by Luxor Cafe by 3 and what was it, 3 1/4 lengths, something like that.
Sounds right.
Don in the Mood was third. So anyway, he was beaten 3 1/4 lengths fourth behind Luxor Cafe. Don in the Mood was third. That would give Luxor Cafe, based on that line that we get from the UAE Derby, roughly an 89, 88, 89 or so. Now that was Luxor Cafe's race before last. He comes back in his next start. What we saw, you can see it on YouTube, the Fukuryu Stakes. You can't get much more visually impressive.
Looked like a turf horse, the way he quickened up. Yeah.
12 flat, according to the sectionals, for the final eighth of a mile. Okay.
Very
How
good.
much did he improve from that 88, 89 in the highest of the stakes to the Fukuryu Stakes? The competition wasn't as tough because some of his tougher rivals peeled off and went to the UAE and didn't stay in Japan. If you make it, if you're generous and you make it, okay, let's make it a 92, 93, 94, then that puts Luxor Cafe roughly in the same position as Burnham Square, Tapan Street, horses like that. But not bad.
Yeah.
So I think that now, again, we're kind of guessing here. But I think that puts that last race, that figure obviously would put Luxor Cafe at least in the conversation among the horses behind journalism. Not a 106 like we could project with Derma Sotogake, not a 100 like we could project with Forever Young, a little bit further down the line. So as I've kind of gotten a reputation, Pete, as the Japanese guy. I feel like I should take a class and try to learn the language, Konnichiwa, that's hello. I know that much. Sayonara, I know that much. This I'm not because I don't think Luxor Cafe, based on guesswork primarily, is as good as Forever Young or Derma Sotogake. I'm not going to pick him in the Derby, but trust me, for that reason, he'll probably win.
Want to let folks know this video brought to you by our friends at TwinSpires.com, the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge coming up on Derby Day. You can qualify all month long. TwinSpires.com, navigate over to that tournaments tab. Get involved with horse racing's latest major tournament. My fear is, I love your case and I agree with the way you have positioned it, that he's not as fast as those others. But with all the attention, especially around Forever Young, and Derma Sotogake, I'll give a nice asterisk to because of the trip, especially the break. I feels like not a race you can consider a representative effort from a speed figure point of view. But I feel like they've been building, that Derma comes back, runs second in the Classic. Forever Young does what he's done around the world. I think the world is ready. The market is ready to gravitate towards this horse. And yet he's not as good. And that feels like a time where, maybe he's an include in bets, but he shouldn't be a key. Does that jive with your what you're
It
saying?
does. And yeah, and I've been saying it for the last 2 years, and really even further back than that. It's just a matter of time
Yeah,
before the Japanese win the Kentucky Derby. They're starting to target it now. We've seen what the Japanese have done internationally. All these, grandsons and great grandsons of Sunday Silence. I mean, my God, they've been dominating on turf and dirt
it's
in
amazing.
Saudi Arabia and in Dubai.
Yeah.
And at the Breeders' Cup, they've done pretty well. They didn't do so well last year at Del Mar, but yeah. So I think it's a matter of time before the Japanese take down the Kentucky Derby. They arguably maybe should have done it last year, but is this horse going to be the one? Luxor Cafe. Visually, you had to like the way he looked when he drew off going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. You had to like his 12-second final furlong. You've got to like the fact that he wasn't flown all the way to the Middle East and run in both those races back to back prior to the Kentucky Derby. We saw what it did to Forever Young.
Right.
And, you know, the big turf horse that he beat for that,
Romantic Warrior.
Romantic Warrior, both. So, yeah, that's the case for Luxor Cafe.
One last question on this. I think we agree at the right price, very usable Luxor Cafe. Worried a little bit he might be underbet. But is this a year as a figure oriented player? I mean, is it journalism and then everybody else?
Yeah. I think journalism is going to be. I made a line today, Pete, and I made journalism 5-2.
Okay, I like that.
Which, in the context of present day Kentucky Derbies, is a pretty solid favorite.
Yeah, that's shorter than American Pharoah. I mean, he was 2.9. So yeah,
and then I think my next highest horse was 7-1, and then 8-1. So
well, I have to add, it would be a host fail if I didn't ask, where was Luxor Cafe on that list?
made him 20-1.
Yeah. Yeah, we see it very similarly. It's fascinating and amazing to have you on here, bringing the data behind this stuff. We're going to have so much more coverage. We'll have you and the Super Jock back in the mix here, if you'll allow, promoting the fantastic coverage coming up on NBC Sports of the Kentucky Derby. And folks should subscribe to the In the Money YouTube channel because we're going to have loads more of these monster pods and lots of other fun stuff to come. Randy, thank you so much.
Sayonara, Pete.